Hi everybody, so in this video we are going to be looking at the structure of the League of Nations, how it was run, what was the makeup of it and whether that was effective or not. So we'll start with the assembly. Now the assembly was kind of like we talked about before, how President Wilson wanted the League of Nations to be like a parliament. And this is what the assembly was like. So every nation sent one representative. So one representative from every member of the league. Now they met once a year. And that was on the first Monday of September. And when they met in September, they voted and they discussed things. Okay, so that was kind of like their annual meeting, and that was once per year. So we'll come back to that. Now they voted, and when they voted, their decisions had to be unanimous, which meant that everyone had to agree. Now, what we've got to remember here is that there are 58 members at the highest point of the league. So that's important to remember when we come back to the unanimous policy in a second. So there's 58 members and they have to agree on everything. And if they couldn't reach that unanimous the decision would be passed to the council. Okay, and we'll come on to the council in a minute. So the assembly had different powers, different responsibilities. So it decided on the membership, it decided who could join and who couldn't. It elected members to the International Court of Justice, which we will come on to in a second. It could vote for non-permanent members of the council. And it also decided on how the money was spent for the league. So it did quite a lot, but the fact that the decision had to be unanimous is a really big flaw in the assembly, because what you've got to remember here is that each country, each representative put their country first. Okay, and if they went with an intention, and they went with the aim of getting the most that they could for their country. So two countries are not necessarily going to vote the same way on something because they're coming at it from different things. And if a decision is going to benefit one country and not another, obviously that country isn't then going to vote for it. So it's really, really hard to get a unanimous vote on something when everybody has such different aims from the discussions and the questions that are being asked. So let's have a look at the council then. So the council, choose a different colour for the council. So as we've just said, the assembly wasn't enough to make sure that the league was running smoothly, because they couldn't necessarily get a unanimous decision. They only met once a year, so it wasn't like they could just phone each other up and be like, what should we do about this? Let's all get on a Zoom. They couldn't do that. So what the council did was they met more frequently than the Assembly. So they had the power to meet, the opportunity to meet much more frequently. There were only 4 members of the council. So these were what we've been talking about, the key figures. So in the council was Britain, France, Italy, and Japan. 4 other countries were on it at any time for 3 years. So we've got plus 4 others for 3 years each. So after, so this is what we're talking about down here when we said non-permanent members of the council, they voted on who was going to sit on the council. So the big 4 were the Britain, France, Italy, and Japan. They were permanent members of the council, but the council also had 4 other members who took it in turns to be on it, and they were there for 3 years. Later, that became 9 years. Okay. So the council had the power of veto. So it could stop a ruling with its vote. So imagine a scenario where they were in a meeting and all 58 members at one time had finally reached a unanimous decision, and they had decided on something, and then they'd gone away, and then the council met and said, right, well, this was decided, everybody agreed to it, including the members of the council, agreed to it at the last meeting. Do we still want it? They could say, nah, no, let's not do that. And they could say, reverse that decision. So really, it makes you think that the Assembly is just there a little bit for show, because what's the point in them having meetings and coming up with these unanimous decisions if then these 8 countries could then say, actually, this is what we want to do? So it's not really a representative vote. It's not really taking every single member of the league into consideration. It's taking the most powerful members of the league's views into consideration. So that's a really important bit to when we're thinking about the strengths and the weaknesses and the failures and the successes of the League of Nations. Is it doing what it set out to do? Is the way that it's set up, and this is a really big thinking point for you, is the way that it's set up allowing it to function as it was intended to function by President Wilson? Okay, so the Secretariat, this is the civil service of the League. So you might think with Secretariat sounds like secretary. It was exactly that. So it was the admin and organisation section. And it organised any actions for the league to take. So it did have people who worked in it were experts in different areas, so such as finance, and they carried out all operations apart from military, which we know the League didn't even have a military, so it wasn't involved in the military of the League. Now, the special commissions, I'm going to be going through them in more detail in the next video. So the special commissions were groups which tackled any issues such as, I'll just give a few examples because like I said, I'm going to go through this in the next video. So health, slavery, refugees. So this section was responsible for the aim of improve the health and working conditions of all peoples, if you remember that aim. Okay, it did the humanitarian work, this one. Just go back on some pink. So they helped out other underdeveloped countries. And they also represented minority groups. And you could argue that they are actually the most successful section of the League. I'll leave you to make that decision after we've had a look at that in more detail in the next video. So let's finish then with the International Court of Justice. So the League sets up the International Court of Justice, and it's there as their section, obviously, on the law. They funded it, they set it up, and it was a court of law, and its aim was to settle any international disagreements. Okay, so a country could bring a dispute, and they had 11 judges and 4 deputy judges. And then they would look at both sides, and then they would reach a verdict on what would happen. And then they could, and this is the key word here, they could advise the parties on the action that they should take. Now, the word advise is there because it was not compulsory. So, okay, so their suggestions were not compulsory, they did not have to be followed, and because the League had no army, this was actually really difficult to enforce. So again, if we look at this as a whole, you can find things that are wrong with every part of it. So if we look at the assembly, we can see that the idea that the decisions have to be unanimous, that seems completely bizarre because, like I said, how often was it going to happen? This idea then that the council could just reverse any decisions that the assembly had just made. The secretariat, they're not really, I mean, they're there administratively, so they were fine doing their job. The special commissions, they did do a lot. They helped a lot of people, as we'll talk about in the next video. And then the International Court of Justice, the idea that they could advise, but then again, we're coming back to this lack of army, this lack of force and actual ability behind the League to do anything. And remember, the peer pressure, the moral condemnation might have worked on the smaller countries in the League, but there was absolutely no guarantee that it was going to work on the bigger ones, and it definitely doesn't. So it's definitely flawed, but like I said, there are some positives to the League. So membership is one of them. The trading sanctions, again, can be seen as a positive. I will go into the pros and cons of the League in a different video. But the fact that it's got this no army, the fact that the USA are not there, the fact that the structure of it and the administration of it is flawed, there's a lot that it could do to improve itself. And what we'll see as we go on, in a few videos time, I'll go through what the League did in the 1920s and how it was quite successful there. But against a power like Hitler, as we'll see and as we know, they aren't going to be very successful, because somebody who is intent on gaining territory and intent on war, they're just not going to listen to the League of Nations, because really they have absolutely no reason to, because when Hitler starts to rearm in 1935, his army immediately can wipe away the League of Nations, because they don't have any army as a body behind them. And as I mentioned in a previous video, another really big flaw of the League is that its main countries are actually going behind its back. So when Britain and France want to do something, they don't necessarily go through the League, even though they are its biggest powers, they are its leaders, they actually just go and do it off their own back. So it massively undermines the League powers. Okay, so thank you for joining this video. In the next video, I will be going through the special commissions, the League's agencies, what they did that was positive, and where they might have fallen short. So thank you very much for joining, and I'll see you in the next video.